it doesn't even need to have heat at times. It could just be sitting on the shelf for too long.
Right.
And it can oxidize. And now you're putting something in your body that already has the ability to create free radical damage.
Well, let's talk about like desserts, how they typically show up in the standard American diet. Like what are the kinds of desserts that people are typically eating? What are they made from? What are the kinds of things that people should really like look out for and try to avoid when buying desserts?
Yeah, I mean, the typical dessert is going to have glutinous flours, refined sugar, vegetable oils, possibly, depending on where this is being made. I mean, some places use a little bit better ingredients, but most desserts you're going to find throughout the aisles in the normal grocery store are going to be full of these harmful ingredients that people kind of bypass because they think, oh, you know what, I'm just going to cheat this one time. And then it turns into like 3 or 4 times that week. And it's now a routine for them to be getting this kind of like dietary supplement of canola oil or soybean oil or something in a dessert, eating glutinous flours that could eventually, affect their gut, turn into leaky gut situations. Same thing with like refined sugar. I mean, people are trying, it's pretty big. The metabolic world is big now in terms of trying to figure out how to support your blood sugar. And most people are still deciding they want to throw it off by eating these like really, really highly refined carbohydrate and sugar meals. And then you go to a restaurant and you can't expect that at the restaurant they're going to be serving you something that is free of those things, because that's how traditional desserts have always been made, right? It's also the new world of dessert is kind of segued in this place where they've taken all the old horrible things and then added some new horrible things to these new desserts. So back in the day, everybody always used refined sugar, cane sugar, but they at least were using butter. Yeah. Or sometimes we're doing donuts in lard, or some of these fats that are actually kind of the primal fats that are good for us. And now it's all these highly refined vegetable oils, everything from all the seed oils, canola, soybean, safflower, sunflower, like those are kind of what make up most of these desserts now. And they try to say, oh, this is a healthier version because it doesn't have butter. And I'm trying to tell people that no, get back to the basics of butter, of ghee, of coconut oil, of these saturated fats in your desserts, pasture raised eggs, good eggs from a great farm. And then take out these things instead, and just trying to like switch people's thinking on how they eat dessert or how they want to make dessert, which is why I made the recipe book, because I want people to find the glossary in the beginning of the book and say, okay, what can I load my pantry up with so that I'm kind of stacked to be able to make all 50 of these desserts, or 10 of these desserts or whatever, because I've kind of made it so that most of these desserts are kind of made with similar ingredients to make it easy on the person. But I'm using, instead of a highly refined wheat flour, which is most desserts are made from, I'm trying to get people to lock into the idea that they can combine some of these gluten-free flours like coconut flour or cassava flour, or even like white rice flour. Some of these things are maybe higher in carbohydrates, but your body is able to digest them a lot better. And when paired with things like grass-fed collagen and good sources of fats like grass-fed butter, coconut oil, or pasture-raised eggs, now you have kind of a stable foundation where you're eating a full food that can help actually stabilize your blood sugar while you're eating it, as opposed to having this crazy spike because everything you're eating is pretty much inflammatory.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I made the book. There's a lot of different things in the book that are part of kind of my growth as a human too, and my evolution of how I've been eating. So
I mean, when we first got together and podcasted, you were on like a hardcore keto diet. You were like,
it wasn't that
you were just sugar free,
but
you weren't just sugar free.
I wasn't eating like cheese and meat only.
Fair.
I was eating vegetables. It was like a vegetable meat
vegetables.
Fat diet.
Yeah, lots of low starch, fibrous vegetables,
definitely.
And fatty meat.
Yep,
butter. Always butter. Lots of butter.
That was 4 or 5 years ago. I around that time had gotten my hormones checked, and they were all just wrecked.
Wow.
To the floor. Like testosterone was bad. My blood sugar wasn't that great. Like things that I thought being low carb or doing this or doing that, like I was gonna, and I was also in really good shape. I had like 8 or 9% body fat. I thought like, oh my God, I'm such great shape. And my blood work came back and so many markers that were off.
Interesting.
And so I went back to the drawing table of like my food and I'm going, okay, what's the issue here? And I started to listen to certain people and had different mentors come into the picture over the last couple of years that I really turned to for some guidance, and they actually bring a lot of scientific evidence behind what they're talking about. This one follow I really love on Instagram, these two girls, they call themselves Strong Sisters, @Strong Sisters, and they have the most incredible researched like food posts that are really getting back to the basics of food. I mean, they drink raw A2 like grass-fed milk. They avoid like a lot of these plant milks and foods. They are all about getting like the meat and the organs and eating like fruit and honey and maple syrup, and kind of brought me back into this place where I started to think about food as something to fuel my body and my metabolism and my cells, as opposed to like a scarcity type idea of like, oh, if I avoid certain carbs, I'll stay lean. And I think my mindset before was much more of a vanity approach, thinking, oh, if I eat these things, I'm always going to look shredded and that's it. But then when I looked at like my hormones and I realized that, you know, my health wasn't where I thought it should be, I had to start doing something different. And so now it's the complete opposite. I mean, I eat so much fruit now. I wouldn't say I eat so much fruit to where it's like I'm a fruitarian, but I definitely probably eat fruit, certain fruit, mango, papaya, bananas, like with most, you know, meals.
How do you like your mango? We got to talk about this.
Ripe only.
No.
Well, what are you doing? What's the point of eating unripe fruit?
Well, no, it's not that ripe mango is bad. It's certainly not bad, but I think unripe mango is way better. I like the sour vibe of it. Like it's crunchier. I don't like mushy fruit.
Oh man, I love
overripe mango.
Totally.
I've had this debate on my Instagram.
Papaya, those are my two. I like
unripe mango with a little tahini on it. So freaking good. Also, it's a good source of resistant starch. Unripe mango. Same with papaya and bananas. It's good for the gut.
Possibly.
You disagree?
I think that's something that I battled with.
Personal preference, obviously. I'm not saying that I'm right, but
no, I think that's one thing that I went back and forth with, was how much fiber I actually need in my diet.
Interesting.
And I think I get a pretty good amount of fiber from fruit.
Yeah.
Because and you make fun of me sometimes, but like I probably eat 5-10% vegetables in my diet now.
Yeah, very low.
Very low. And maybe this isn't what works for everyone, but it has worked for me over a long period of time. And I come from a history of gut issues. So I think that pulling down my amount of like cellulose fiber really helped to like let my gut heal and settle. And I think that's something that I've helped a lot of people with too over the years that have come to me saying, my gut's this, my gut's that. And if it sounds similar to what I've kind of gone through, I kind of been like, well, maybe try avoiding some of these hard to digest foods for a while. Nuts, seeds, hard to digest legumes, cruciferous vegetables, like the ones that are kind of almost act in a hormetic effect, correct? Like that's kind of one of the main benefits of eating some of these foods, is that you create this resilience in the body, you know? So, but if somebody doesn't necessarily need to create that resilience, they just want to heal.
Right.
Maybe it's better to have some of these foods that speed things up a little bit. Like the fruits, the honey, the maple sugar. Maybe at that time they're thinking, oh, candida, this and this and this. But I think that is also kind of a big mind trick for a lot of people. And we've come from a kind of world of, we're all neurotic about food these days, and we're all scared to eat certain foods. And I think that to get rid of that neurosis and actually just go, okay, I'm going to be very active today. I'm going to work out. I need to get work done on the computer. I got a meeting later. So I'm going to eat food that gives me fuel so I can get through those things, recover from my workout, have energy to go to the next thing. As opposed to like, I used to just do that whole idea where it's like, oh, avocado, vegetables, salmon, and then by like 2:00, I was tanked. I wanted to take a 3-hour nap. I don't take naps anymore. I'm up and at it for all day long. And I mean, just last weekend, I was like, how do I have all this energy? I went and worked out, did like a crazy leg workout at Gold's out in Venice, ate lunch. And then I was kind of bored. And I go, you know what? I've been wanting to surf. I'm just going to call this place and take a surf lesson. It was 2 hours and I kicked my ass. Well, like after that, I went and got some food and I was fine. I went to bed at a normal hour, but I couldn't have done that 4 years ago. No way.
Yeah.
I would have been pooped after my workout, tried to get something down and then drove home like halfway exhausted. So,
well, you're eating more carbs, which, like is important for sustaining that high intensity level of exercise.
Sure.
And you're going to the gym all the time. You're an athlete. You're playing volleyball every weekend. You're now surfing. So, I mean, carbohydrates.
I've been twice, but
well,
I want to start surfing. I want to get good at it.
Well, it's still like you're not running low, so you're supplying your body with the nutrients that it needs. What are some of your favorite types of carbohydrates? You can go out of like tubers. You mentioned rice,
roots and fruits, basically, and then the only grain I really consume is white rice. And I actually started eating mostly sushi rice as the white rice, which most people be like, oh my God, that's the most high glycemic one. But it's also the easiest to digest. And it's got the low
short grain.
And apparently it's literally, have you ever seen sushi rice? They look like little pebbles. They're so small.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting. The longer the grain, the higher the proportion of resistant starch. So maybe you just do better.
Exactly. So that's why I go back to this idea of like the prebiotic fibers and the resistant starches. For me, I think, and every gut is going to be different. Everybody's journey is going to be different. That some people might take a resistant starch prebiotic powder before bed because they feel like it helps them have bowel movements in the morning. Some people will completely avoid it. And for me, it's been one of those things where I've noticed that the more I avoid it, the less I don't ever bloat, but the less I get gassy, the less I feel stomach pains, the more energy I feel. So, but I've also incorporated the one thing that I also didn't do back then was eat any organs, no liver, no heart, no bone marrow, none of that stuff. Right. And now, I mean, I'll eat liver every once in a while, but I like to take all those as supplement form to kind of get that, because I think with the amount of animal protein that we eat, when we also bring in all the organs, now we're getting the whole array of vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we should be getting from the animal, as opposed to just eating the flesh, just eating a white chicken breast. All you're getting is protein, right?
Yeah. The skeletal muscle.
Exactly.
That's all you're getting. Yeah.
And all the main heads of animal kingdoms always went for the
organs,
liver and the heart.
Yeah.
The organs, because they knew that was the most nutrient dense food in the body.
Yeah, you do. I mean, with organs, you get like, well, with liver specifically, you get copper.
Mm-hmm.
You get
vitamin A.
Yeah, vitamin A, preformed vitamin A, retinol.
Mm-hmm.
You get vitamin B12, like a massive hit of vitamin B12, a little bit of folate.
Mm-hmm.
You get all kinds of great stuff from liver.
Yeah, and
other organs.
I suggest to people that don't want to try to take down some raw liver or try to cook liver or cook heart to invest in some of these companies that are making like.
Have you tried
really
raw
high
liver?
Qualities.
I've never tried it.
I have tried raw liver. I didn't like it. No.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. Some of the guys on Instagram that are just crushing the liver, they're just animals. I don't know. I can't do it.
Yeah, no thanks.
I'm trying.
I've never done it. I mean, I see the value in liver. I'll cook it sometimes. In my cookbook, I actually have like a really basic recipe on how to cook beef liver.
That was smart that you did that, because
you can cook it and it comes out delicious. Mm-hmm. Chicken liver, depending on the recipe, chicken liver is much more palatable than beef liver. But yeah, no, I do definitely think it's worth incorporating. I think that the raw thing is a bit extreme and also potentially dangerous. Like if you're buying liver from a supermarket that's been sitting out, you're gonna fucking eat it raw.
Yeah,
like you're exposing yourself to risk there. Not that like taking it, if you were to hunt the animal and then extract it from the carcass after killing it yourself.
Right,
that's a different story.
Yeah, but going through this whole mega process of where it's being shipped and held, and then all of a sudden you're taking it from like a Whole Foods.
No, thank you.
It's not a good. I don't think that's a good idea.
Exactly.
And then eating it raw. No.
But you've seen benefit to incorporating more organs?
Oh yeah, that's probably one of the top things that I've incorporated in my nutrition as of the last couple of years that I've seen the most benefit from. Definitely adding in more carbs and having that balanced approach with carbs and fats and proteins. But, and you know, I'm a firm believer that I like to eat my sweet stuff, my sugary stuff or carbohydrate stuff with protein, because I feel like for me, it's more of a blood sugar stabilizing approach as opposed to maybe a digestive approach. So I do it that way. I'll eat fruit with rice and a protein and a fat. Like I'll eat all the all of them together. And especially if I'm coming off of a workout, it just feels like my body just soaks up whatever it can get. As long as it's not something that is hard to digest for me.
Yeah.
So that's where I run into trouble personally. But I think, you know, we're all obviously different, and some people can eat. Fruitarians, apparently, you know, they feel fine eating 20 bananas a day. I don't know how long that's going to last them, but like some people just, it's just crazy how different we all are. And I just think that there's so many dogmatic approaches and ideas to food that people seem a little righteous out in the world, saying that this is it and this is what everybody should do. And if you don't do it, then you're crazy. And
that's one of the most crazy fads trend. I don't even know if you can call it a fad, because it's not a fad to the people who adopt it until they get seriously ill, perhaps. But I stumbled upon somebody's YouTube channel today who's a raw vegan fruitarian, only eats fruit. That's it.
Yeah.
He looked like a skeleton.
Yeah.
And he was about 70 something years old, if I had to guess. Or in actuality, he was probably about 50 years old, but he looked like he was 70.
Jeez.
And yeah, people just get on these like weird,
they get on their kicks and
food trips,
feel high on the food, and then they feel like it's the best thing that everybody should be doing. And
no, not smart. Okay, so dessert. I love that you're a pioneer in this space. Before desserts, so there was like, I mean, for eons, humans were making desserts with dairy, eggs, and then there was this sort of like demonization of fat that occurred in the 80s, 70s and 80s, right? And then that's
when all the industrial seed oils
the seed oils,
Crisco.
Right. It was like
everybody was like, can't believe it's not butter is the thing. We should all be eating this. And you look on the back of that package and it's what's the blend? It's canola, soybean, and one other one, like cottonseed oil.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
With tons of refined grains, added sugars. It was like the Snackwells phenomenon, right? Snackwells, low sugar.
Eat all this cereal because it's heart healthy, because it lowers your cholesterol, all the bullshit.
Yeah. So these recipes are great. They're getting back to basics. You utilize dairy to some degree.
Yeah, definitely.
Dairy.
Most of my recipes call for grass-fed butter as like your first option. Everybody can use coconut oil if they'd like to, and they don't do any dairy products. Like it's in there. Like I talk about substitutions, but if people really want to make my desserts how I make them from start to finish, I use either grass-fed butter or ghee in pretty much every single one that I make. That's the staple of the dessert, and it's probably between that and, you know, maybe the full amount of flour. Those are pretty like standardly the same amount ingredient wise. And that really helps to slow down the digestion of the sugars if you have the fat in there as well. So I think that's why people don't ever eat my dessert and go, oh my God, I feel like, you know, cracked out.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, those are really good. And then they have like just kind of a sustainable energy. Because in general, basically what you're going to get here is something that if you went to like Whole Foods and got like an energy bite, right? And they called it something and they would put like nuts and dates and all that stuff. But if you take those exact proportions of fat, carbs, protein, whatever, and you added them all up, it'd probably be a similar number.
Right, calorie wise. Instead, you're getting something that is you're missing out on normally in life because you're going, oh, I can't eat dessert right now. I'm trying to keep my figure or whatever. You get to indulge in something that has, like for instance, this blondie is sweetened with organic maple sugar. I love this organic maple powder sugar
from this company called Frost Ridge Maple Farms. I get specifically from this organic maple farm.
Wow.
And it's so delicious that I am using it in one of my cookie mixes as like, I basically made a cookie mix specifically for the world of, I don't do good on sugar alcohols. I don't really eat erythritol or xylitol or any of those things. I want actual sugar, like just normal sweetness. I was like, this is it. Like, because honey is hard. You can't, obviously you can't package honey, like liquid honey in a baking mix. And it's, the honey powders out there aren't very good. So
interesting.
This is the move. They maple sugar with, these are collagen based brownies. So there's a favorable amount of collagen in the cookie. So you can call them a skin healthy cookie too.
I'm going to dive in. So this is what's the name of this recipe? And it's in the book, The Fit Baker. But what's this called? This is just chocolate chip.
These are just the blondies. Yeah, chocolate chip blondies.
Got it.
Yeah, I tried to refrain from calling them all keto or paleo, because people should know that that's.
You've got some keto recipes.
Some keto.
But everything is grain-free, gluten-free. No unhealthy oils.
There's like maybe 3 recipes in there that have grain because I used oats. Oats are a grain.
Yeah,
right?
and you can find gluten-free oats. They just have to say that they're
gluten-free. I use a sprouted organic gluten-free oat and that's one of the ingredients in the oatmeal chocolate chip cookie mix is I'm using organic sprouted oats.
Why don't you use because it's trendy, I think, in a lot of like grain-free and especially keto products to use almond flour as the base. You don't use any nut flour, right?
I don't use any nut flour.
Why is that?
That is
I'm tasting this.
Yeah, try it. I'll answer that question in a second. We'll give him a moment.
Wow.
This one of my more moist recipes.
Moist.
Yeah. A blondie should be moist, and I
love like the crust.
I had to take some time to figure that out.
Wow.
I probably made this was actually the most challenging recipe that I've made because I probably made this 4 or 5 times before I landed on this.
This does not taste.
I was not satisfied. I was like, I'm gonna make the best healthy blondie.
In no universe does this taste like a healthy blondie,
right?
But it's a healthy blondie.
Yeah.
It's so
no vegetable oils, no refined sugar, no glutinous flours. And
wow.
In my opinion, those are the 3 big avoidance. Obvious, and I don't want to hate on the almond flour community or the people that love almond butter or almonds, because I think there's a time and a place to have a handful of almonds. But ancestrally, we didn't eat. Think about the amount of almonds that must be in a cup of almond flour that you're about to make a dessert with. I can't even. It's probably in the hundreds.
Hundreds, yeah.
So if you make that dessert and you take down a quarter of it, you've probably eaten a couple massive handfuls of almonds.
Yeah.
And
you'd never eat that much.
You would never eat that much.
If you had to shell them yourself in a sitting, yeah.
Exactly. You had to shell them back in the day. We're eating 5 or 6 to 12 almonds at max, right? And you're going to get some benefit. You know, there's vitamin E. There's some things that like come from that food.
Of course.
If not overconsumed. But once you're in a place where you're like, okay, I'm keto. I'm going to do all the keto desserts. And now you're like, oh, I crave a dessert every night. And I'm being keto, so I'm being good to myself if I go get this almond flour donut from Erewhon every night. Or wherever you're getting it, right?
You're consuming a lot of nuts.
Eventually, if you have weak digestion and your body doesn't process those kind of polyunsaturated fats very well, which most of us don't, you're going to eventually end up with probably some issues. So that's why I'm avoiding. The book does say if you really want to keep these things completely keto, like, it's up to you. Go for it. Like if you want to substitute for the cassava flour or any of the carbohydrate type flours for almond flour, that's your decision. But I would highly recommend against it, just based off my own background of that. So
what is cassava flour, by the way?
Cassava is a root. Yeah. I forgot where it comes from, but it's. The cool thing about the cassava flour that I'm using, I only use this company called Otto's. And they kind of have sent me, because there's people out there that are talking about like how cassava flour could potentially be toxic in certain ways if you don't heat it up or blend it up or mix it in some kind of way. It could have a certain toxin that I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but they sent me kind of like lab reports on their cassava flour. And so like I'm kind of recommending, hey guys, if you want to, and it just tastes better. I've tried other cassavas and they're like gritty. They kind of make the dessert really gritty. This is like super fine, very, very powdery almost. So it just blends right into all the desserts. So I'm using,
that was so good. I just like inhaled.
You had two of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely one of my favorite recipes in the book. And, they're so easy to make. I mean, I threw those together in maybe 15 minutes and maybe less. And then they take 22 minutes in the oven and just let them sit for a while and cut them up. I mean, it's such a great party snack.
Dude, those were unbelievable.
Thanks, dude.
Like, I can't even like the fact that like that you made that, just like really impressive.
I would love to have a shop that had like a dream of mine is to have like a Crosby's dessert shop.
I think you'll get that.
Abbott Kinney or something. And this, that's the sign. Instead of baking co, it says dessert shop. And you go in and you get like, you can get either like a grass-fed A2 kind of like soft serve vanilla ice cream, or you can get like a plant-based ice cream. And then there's like a plethora of different baked good cookie options. And you just build like a dessert bowl with like cookies or blondies or brownies and some ice cream and a little bit of like drizzle of maybe like some type of,
let's manifest,
chocolate syrup that has some cool herbs in it or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think that like it's such a perfect place for it too here in LA. I mean, people would love that. They're dying for something.
I mean,
that would be fun like that. So
like across the street from Erewhon or something.
Maybe.
Who knows? Okay, so in terms of like complexity, like to make that scale of 1 to 10, like how difficult is it to make these blondies?
Not very difficult at all, as long as you have some of these ingredients that some people might not necessarily have in their pantry now.
But it sounds like the most
like collagen. Like if somebody regularly has collagen in the cabinet,
yeah,
then, and they don't really get the cassava, they go buy the cassava, they're probably going to have everything else.
But collagen, it's not like one of these obscure spices that like you buy for one recipe and then you have and you never use again. Like collagen, you're going to be using for a lot of the different, the recipes in your book, but it's also a supplement that's worth taking. I think for some, like you can justify taking it.
Totally.
Cassava flour is one of these gluten-free starches that's really versatile.
And to be honest, like I think most people that buy a big thing of collagen, how often, besides they probably put it in their smoothie every once in a while, but how often are they just like getting it daily?
Not often.
So it's just another way that they can throw it into a food source that they're going to eat, and also feel less guilty about having a dessert when you're getting 15 grams of protein from collagen.
How much collagen is in here? Like, would you say that this is like a high collagen, like?
Yeah, that.
I was going to say high protein. Collagen's not a complete protein, but like, is there a decent hit of collagen like in each bite?
You're probably getting about 3 grams per cookie, per blondie. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, and the calories aren't crazy high. I cut them into 16 in an 8 by 8 inch pan. But some people will cut obviously bigger.
Yeah. That was so good.
But yeah, it's been a long time in the making, and it's fun to finally have something out, a tangible item that I could say I finally did something with my background of desserts on my Instagram that has been teasing people forever that I'm going to actually come out with something. So this is the first. The second is the Fit Cookie Mix, which will be 2 different cookie mixes that we're going to launch in the beginning of June. And we'll be shipping those online all over the country. You can get my book from a link. I think you guys will probably have a link for that.
Put it in the show notes.
But that's available in the US and the UK. But yeah, dude, it's been quite the process, but it feels like ever since I started making major moves, now there's all these people coming to me going, oh, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. So have some cool opportunities coming up, and I hope that pretty much all of them go through so people can eat my desserts all over the place.
All over the world, yeah.
Yeah.
What are some common mistakes that home bakers make usually? Is it, because I'm sure that there are things that people do routinely that that you as a chef, but like a self-taught chef,
what I had to kind of
particularly,
like learn.
like what are some mistakes that like that people commonly make that that you think that they should that are easy fixes?
One thing that I always did was no matter what powder, even the sweetener, I just throw it all in one bowl and mix it up. And then I put all the wet ingredients in one bowl and mix it up. And then I just combine them. And I only really learned in the last like 6 months that most people that are baking mix the sweetener in with the wet ingredients first and foremost.
I would do that.
You would do which part?
I would just put it all together in one bowl to save effort.
Right. And
is there a reason why it says to
I think that the fats want to like mix and blend and mesh well with the sweetener, because I guess that's what carries through in the dessert to have that full rounded flavor of sweetness.
Yeah.
So I started doing that, and I could taste a bit of difference.
Wow.
It is, it's funny that I'm on your podcast talking about how to bake, but just over the years learning certain funny things because I kind of see this whole thing as like my kind of art form.
Yeah.
I'm not in I'm not in the other room like painting or playing the guitar or like singing or anything. Like I get in the kitchen and I like have like a mental memory of like putting something together and like making something taste good. So it's kind of a fun little meditative art form for me.
I want to just like look at some of these recipes and talk about them. You've got a maple bar donut?
Yeah. Maple bar donuts.
What's a maple bar donut?
It's a donut with the maple glaze on top. You never had a maple bar?
No, what's a maple bar?
What?
A maple bar?
Oh, dude, we got to talk about like our favorite pastime desserts or
tell me.
This is probably the main motivation behind making this book, is because I wanted to eat all this stuff I used to eat. Me and my buddy used to go to this place called Baker Ben's like once a week. Like it was open all night, and we go there like when we were in high school, and football players and just
where is
we're
Baker
eating
Ben's?
whatever we wanted all the time.
NorCal?
In NorCal.
Sacramento?
In Roseville near Sacramento, living with my parents. Just, me and him would get in our car and head over there like 1 a.m. and eat like 3 or 4 donuts. You didn't ever do that?
I remember once there was a Dunkin' Donuts where I was growing up in my neighborhood in Murray Hill on the corner of like 31st or 32nd and 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my brothers once, because we knew that they would throw the donuts out every night.
Yeah.
So whatever was unsold. So we went and we got them to give them to us. So we ended up with like bags. They didn't separate them and put them into nice boxes for me and my brothers, right? They just threw it all into like essentially a garbage bag. So we had dozens of like glazed donuts and Boston cream pies and whatever. And so
I would have went ham on those.
Dude,
things.
We went ham.
Yeah.
I was like sick.
Yeah.
I ate so many, but that was one of my favorite things growing up were donuts. Love them.
Same.
Yeah.
Donuts, this Swiss milk chocolate ice cream from Leatherby's I grew up on. So I tried to replicate something similar to that in the book as well.
Dude, your ice creams look insane.
I have 10 ice creams in the back.
Here's a Hunky Monkey, and use glycine.
Hunky Monkey, yeah. It's a play on Ben and Jerry's Chunky Monkey. We don't want people to be ended up chunky, so we're gonna make them hunky instead.
See, these recipes, the ingredients that you're requiring, like maybe not everybody is gonna have them right away, but these are all ingredients worth having in your kitchen. I have
so
all
maybe
these,
it'll motivate people to use these 100%.
Like here's a whey isolate, which like it's great to be able to have a protein shake whenever you want. So it's good.
Why
it's
not
good to have that? Yeah.
Why not have a considerable amount of protein in an ice cream as opposed to it just being all milk?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Glycine is super sweet. It's got
glycine is part of what makes this sweet. It's a natural, it has a natural sweetness to it, but it's amazing for the nervous system, blood sugar, taking glycine at night before bed.
Yeah.
Amazing for sleep. It's a really amazing amino acid. I mean, it's the main amino acid in collagen. So it's also obviously great for skin and detoxification.
Right.
And if you use it as a teaspoon here and there by itself, you'll definitely notice some benefits after a while.
Dude.
So I've sweetened a lot of different ice creams with it. I have some frostings that have it in there. Like just trying to get people to think outside the box a little bit and use some of these ingredients that are slightly a little biohacky, but like, you know, maybe it'll motivate somebody to go, oh, cool. I'm going to use glycine more often now that I've picked it up because I'm using it in some of Crosby's desserts.
Wow. You've got, okay. So this is the table contents. You've got Crosby's cookies. Your cookies are insane.
Thanks.
Which is probably like what you're most known for.
Yeah.
At least
that's what people are going to have to wait on the longest.
Yeah. But no, the recipes are here.
Yeah.
So you got cookies. You've got grain-free breads and muffins.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Cake/pie.
Oh,
cupcakes.
The cakes and the pies might be one of my favorite chapters because that was another thing I grew up on. My one of my best friends in high school, his mom, her name is Linda. She made the most incredible banana cream pie, and every Christmas after Christmas Day dinner at my grandparents, we would drive over to the Garrett's, Linda Garrett's house, and she had a pie out for everybody, but she also knew how much I loved banana cream pie, so she made a separate full whole pie just for me that I got to like bring home. And this is when I didn't care about these things and was eating all that everything because she makes it from scratch, like it's fully from scratch, the custard, but she's using everything normal. You know, she makes the crust out of like vanilla wafers. She's doing, you know,
wow,
it's dense and delicious. And I hit her up and I said, Linda, I need to make that pie in my book. I'm going to make it my way though. Obviously, wow. I'm going to try to recreate the healthy version of your pie, but I need people to taste your pie in the closest replication that I could make. And she was like, of course, you know, so she sent me her recipe and I just, you know, finagled it a little bit, put all my healthy spin on it. And now there's a banana cream pie in there and I'm using a tiger nut graham cracker crust for the pie.
Amazing.
So you're getting the prebiotic fiber there
from tiger nuts. What do you buy? Whole tiger nuts and then you blend them, or
there's a company that makes an organic tiger nut flour.
Got it.
So just using it as a normal flour.
I love tiger nuts just to snack on.
Yeah.
If you eat too much, you'll get bloated.
That's the fiber.
Yeah, it's the fiber. But
if you small amount, you're not going to eat. There's probably enough in one piece of pie that's like perfect amount.
Right.
So, and you're getting that prebiotic fiber
who's gonna
that's
just
going
eat
to balance
one
the
piece
blood
of
sugar. Huh?
Who's just going to eat one piece of pie though? I mean,
the pie is insane.
I'm sure.
It's one of my favorites. There's also a New York cheesecake in there.
Dude, almond croissant cupcake?
Croissant. I like how you say that. Croissant.
Croissant. It just
almond. There's almond like kind of marzipan-y tasting cookies and cupcakes in here because I've always been a fan. Again, a lot of these things turn back to my childhood of going to La Boulangerie and getting an almond croissant down the street from my parents when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Not something that I eat anymore. I'm not going to go down the street on La Brea or Melrose and get a croissant somewhere because I know what it's made of and I'm there now, you know? So if I want to make something that has that type of flavor, I just kind of figured it out over the time. And now there's a book and I hope people buy it because I think it's going to help them get over their obsession with some of these detrimental desserts that they're probably eating on a too often basis.
Oh yeah, most desserts are crap. They're like a perfect storm. I mean, you mentioned this already, but like the refined sugar, the glutinous grains, the unhealthy oils.
Yeah,
and that's not even to mention that's without mentioning the industrial additives that are thrown in, the preservatives, the emulsifiers.
Oh, dude, that's the other thing. I should have pointed that out talking about on the shelves, but like obviously the other thing that we should be looking for are those preservatives and the things that you can't pronounce. If you can't pronounce it and it's in something on the shelf, there's a pretty good chance it's not supposed to go in your body.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
People will push back to that online. They'll say, well,
what do you think they're like saying is okay, like aspartame or something?
Well, no.
Is that how you're supposed to say it? Aspartame?
Well, it's just that there's like these pedants. I think that's the word to describe, the appropriate word to describe them. But they'll say that like, oh, appeal to nature fallacy. Not everything that you can pronounce is good for you, and not everything that you can't pronounce is bad for you. You know, it's like not everything that's natural is necessarily good for you, right? Like arsenic is natural, but that's like not the point. The point is that The point is that the industrial food complex has routinely throughout history put products into the human food supply that they've then had to recall only after finding out later that they were toxic, right? Like partially hydrogenated oils, et cetera, et cetera. So I think like it is smart to take a precautionary principle approach.
Yeah, we shouldn't trust everything that top down certain people are telling us to do.
If you're walking around just blindly trusting the food industry, or even the FDA for that matter.
I mean, who runs the food industry?
Right. It's all these organizations.
Everything's being lobbied, everything's being paid for and bought. So we're just basically the pawns that are listening to major ad spending.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah, most of the studies that show positive health outcomes with seed oils, perhaps, are funded by Mazola.
Yeah,
Procter
they need
and Gamble.
to sell their product.
Yeah, of course.
And
which isn't to say that you should throw out all studies that are funded by by industry, but I mean, like, have a little bit of skepticism.
Yeah, and listen to your body and see how you feel over time too, and maybe go get routine blood work at least like every 6 months to a year and see like physiologically how your body's actually working. Is it working well? Like, oh, well, I don't feel well and my blood work just told me that I'm not doing too well either. There might be something in my food that I'm consuming on a regular basis that I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Or maybe something's going on to where that food is disrupting my hormones or my metabolic function, and it's on and on down the list. Obviously, nutrition is very, very, very important. And we are either on a daily basis going to be eating stuff that is going to make us sicker or potentially, feel better and increase our lifespan. So I think that over time, we're all trying to learn what that is for each of us individually and kind of what makes us all tick. And so, this is kind of my approach and what I've kind of delivered to the population. And I think that like a lot of people are going to benefit, and I'm excited to keep this journey going with the desserts and help people kind of get over the edge of like feeling like they got to go to, one of these.
Yeah.
Go to Ralph's and get like a packet of those like sugary cookies. Like,
yeah,
they probably taste great at the moment, and like any other high dopamine reacting food would make you feel, but I don't think there's like a very long-term benefit for it.
No benefit.
Zero.
At least when you're eating, like an alternative that you would perhaps engineer. It's got a little bit of collagen. It's got fats
nutrients
that aren't already oxidized.
Right.
It's got, it's perhaps lower on the glycemic spectrum.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Is to provide some nutrients to get rid of some of these things that are going to create imbalances, and let people have their cake and eat it too. Let people get out, have their desserts, and we don't have to restrict everything in our lifestyle all the time. Or else life wouldn't be any fun. So
I agree.
Yeah, dude.
You use a lot of is coconut flour, because I feel like a lot of your recipes use coconut flour. Are there any like benefits with that, or is that just a replacement that you found?
I use coconut flour, and it's always in the smallest amount. There's still a considerable amount of coconut flour in some of the products, but I don't make it to where it's like this dense, hard to like, almost like a scone. If you used a bunch of coconut flour in a dessert, it would probably taste like a scone.
Got it.
Because it's so dense, right?
Got it.
But yes, coconut flour is a higher fiber flour, so it's going to help in that regard when it comes to blood sugar. And it's also a flour that I like to use because it is a saturated fat flour as opposed to a polyunsaturated fat flour.
What is the benefit of that? Because I'm sure some people listening are going to be like, well, I thought saturated fats were bad.
Right. Yeah, that's the demonization of butter and saturated fat in those 70s and 80s that you were talking about was, in my opinion, to sell the other stuff, right? To get those other seed oils that probably cost them nothing to get and produce, and they could sell a ton of it and make a big profit. So, but one thing that people need to understand is the idea of science behind the fats. Stable bonded fats and fats that aren't stable because of the amount of chains. Poly meaning many chains, saturated only one, right? So with that, you're going to have a stable bonded fat that's not going to oxidize saturated. So even though there's less demonization being, oh my God, your cholesterol or this or that or whatever, heart disease, yada, 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 the correlation isn't there. The correlation is actually in the idea that this fat is protected. Therefore, it can be consumed and it's not going to have detrimental effects in those ways. Whereas something that is a poly long chain form fat is heavily oxidized to the point where like it doesn't even need to have heat at times. It could just be sitting on the shelf for too long.
Right.
And it can oxidize. And now you're putting something in your body that already has the ability to create free radical damage. And if you're doing that often, so for somebody that's going to a restaurant 4 or 5 nights a week, those people aren't cooking. I mean, you might get olive oil every once in a while at like a cool Italian place, but most every restaurant is using the cheapest oil they can get to have a profit, right?
Yeah.
They need to have margins. So they're going to use canola oil. They're going to use soybean oil. They're going to use safflower oil. And these are all polyunsaturated fats that we should be avoiding. And the one thing that I literally cut cold turkey out of my diet 4 years ago, and within months saw major, major benefits and changes in my mood, my energy, my libido, my sleep. And if you think about it, if you're getting it all the time, it's just that day-to-day toxin that you're getting that is going to have detrimental effects on your whole metabolic function. So I tend to say avoid it at all costs, especially the oils, the seed oils. And then in moderation, have the healthier forms of it. I mean, you get some polyunsaturated fat in pastured eggs. There's poly in that. There's poly in some of these other fats, right, that we eat on a regular basis. There's poly in meats and chicken and pork. There's higher amounts of polyunsaturated fat. They still have some good protein. So you're gonna get. It's not like you can avoid it completely.
Well, I think the difference is in whole food, it's protected by the antioxidants that nature has packaged
the vitamin E.
Yeah, the vitamin E that protects those fats, right? In grass-fed beef, you see a higher proportion of alpha-linolenic acid, which is an omega, which is a polyunsaturated fat, right? It's not bad in any sense because it's protected. It's a fat in its freshest state, protected by the antioxidants that are bound with it in nature.
Exactly.
The problem with these grain and seed oils is that they're extracted via innumerable chemical or mechanical processes, often being exposed to high temperatures, and it's heat, oxygen, and light that catalyze this process. And oxidation for an oil, it's like rot. It's like chemical degradation, right? You wouldn't like see an apple that's turned brown and be like, "Yum, that looks good," right? We're programmed to not want to eat things that are visibly rotted. You can't see the fact that one of these oils has gone bad, right? To the naked eye, it's an invisible process.
Yeah.
But I think that in and of itself is an argument as to why you should avoid them, because they're oils that have like gone bad essentially.
Well, but let me ask you something. What do you do with a kind of brown avocado? Will you still eat it?
No.
Or you scoop the top off?
I
what
try.
do you do?
Yeah, if on an avocado,
or like if guacamole, you know, guac, it's like you eat it once, 4 hours later, it's like brown on top. Will you scoop it off and eat the green, or will you just toss it?
I will. I mean, I want to say that I'll scoop it off.
I scoop off. I'm not trying to fully.
No, with guacamole, I'll probably toss it.
Really?
Yeah, but if it's an avocado,
tell me why,
if it's not,
I'll scoop.
No. It's for me.
Just preference.
Well, because also it gets kind of like watery at the top, like the liquids kind of rise up.
Yeah, I won't do that. I'll toss.
If it's fairly fresh.
If it's literally within the 6 hours and it's already getting brown, I'll scoop, because I'm like, you know, I'm trying to get at least 2 uses out of this.
That's fair.
Guacamole.
That's fair. No,
but you use the lemon trick, right?
The lemon trick. Does that work? Yeah.
I mean,
you put lemon on it.
You put it on your Instagram the other day.
Yeah. No, that works. That it also works to put in the fridge.
Right.
But
it's still gonna brown.
But it's not foolproof.
Yeah.
It's not.
Avocados are one of those things. If you're not gonna eat the whole avocado in that one sitting, are you ever gonna eat the other half? Do you really ever eat the other half?
It's rare, but I do.
It's rare.
I mean, I just hate food waste. It's
same,
a shame
but like
to waste
just
food. Yeah.
You know, if that next meal doesn't call for avocado and it's sitting in there for a another day or two.
Yeah.
And you look at it and it's already brown and you're like, oh shit.
Right. But I think there's like this innate tendency in us to not want to eat food that's gone bad. Right. And the problem with these grain and seed oils is that the fatty acids have effectively gone bad. You just can't see it to the naked eye. But if you could see it, right?
You would need it.
You would need it.
You would need it. But we're obviously, there's a blind eye happening because it's just it just looks like a clear oil.
Yeah.
So we don't know.
Right. And
most people don't know. They don't think about it.
Right.
We're thinking about it because we're neurotic health weirdos. And
there might not be any like overt harm to come from their. I don't think there is any harm that comes from like the occasional consumption of them. The same way that like you could eat the brown apple.
Yeah.
You could eat the brown avocado. It's not like it's going to kill you.
Right.
Right. But I think that there's like this innate intelligence that we have that sometimes we just like we disregard, right?
Again, no, you'll never find a vegetable oil in any of these recipes.
Yeah.
0.
No.
I actually don't. There is some substitutions for certain things if you want to make it more plant-based. But most recipes call for kind of a well-rounded, more omnivorous approach to dessert.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed that conversation, you're gonna love this one.
It comes down to some simple rules. One is you got to eat right. You absolutely have to eat right. And of course, I've orchestrated most of my professional career around figuring out those secrets. Hence, 10 books on how to eat right. Then there's the movement patterns, and the movement. I thought when I was younger that the more was better, and putting in 100 miles a week of running or 250 miles a week of cycling was the way to go. And I was going to be, jacked and, well, not jacked because you can't get that big doing that amount of endurance stuff. But I was going to be the fittest, beast on earth. Doesn't work that way. There's a point of diminishing returns when you train too hard and too much. So a lot of what I've done in the past couple of decades is figure out, literally, to quote, Tim Ferriss, what's the minimum effective dose of exercise? What's the least amount of exercise, focused on the workout part? What's the least amount of working out I can do and, maintain muscle mass and maintain some amount of power and agility and mobility. And then that allows me to play and to play without getting injured. So all of the workouts I do in the gym are sort of contemplated to keep me from getting injured when I'm playing. Now, when I'm playing, I'm having fun. I'm moving around a lot. I'm sprinting, I'm jumping, I'm paddling, I'm doing core work. I mean, it's all kind of all over the place, which adds up to a total picture of, I think, vibrancy. I mean, I'm not just, going out and running 40 miles a week as a 68-year-old guy and that's it. I'm doing a little bit of sprints, a little bit of endurance, a little bit of cycling, a little bit of, throwing and catching and changing movement. So the key to that is to move yourself through as many planes and ranges of motion as you possibly can, because as we get to the later stage of our lives, we really have to define the quality of life in ways that are meaningful. And I think the two major meaningful ways are access to cognition. So our thoughts, can we respond to people, have conversations? Can we recall our thoughts? Can we remember things? Do we have access to those wonderful memories that we created in the earlier parts of our lives? And mobility, am I able to get through this world and enjoy travel and enjoy meeting new people and enjoy going places and taking walks and going out in the forest or going on a hike or going in the water and swimming or going scuba diving or snorkeling or whatever it is, or skiing or snowboarding? Those are all, again, to me, those are all, the sorts of things that add up to a high quality of life. And when you as you get older, those people tend to I think downplay the importance of those. I'll sit home, I'll call my kids on the phone, or I'll talk to my grandchildren, or I'll watch TV or whatever. And there's this steady decline that people tend to enter into if they're not really aware of what's going on. And the more you sit around and the less you work out, the less inclined you are to work out, or the less inclined you are to move, the less inclined you are to walk. So, walking is still the greatest thing humans ever learned to do. The bipedalism, which is, we're basically like segways. How do we stay upright on 2 feet? I don't even know, right? It's like
it is amazing.
It is amazing. But the ability to just get out and walk is, I cannot stress enough to everybody. And what's funny is, I don't know if you're fans of Mark and Chris Bell, the Bell brothers, Mark Smelly Bell.
I'm familiar. I don't really know that much about them.
But I mean, he's been a bodybuilder. Well, he's been a heavy weightlifter his whole life, and then a bodybuilder. And now he's just sort of discovered walking, and it's like one of his favorite activities to do. And I love to see that. And he's still in the gym lifting heavy shit, but he's out there walking every day because he recognizes the importance of it. That's
amazing.
Yeah.
Why? Do you have like a certain step count that you aim for, or it's just like you just go by the feel of your body?
I go by the feel. So I was in July, I rented a house in the south of France, and a big house. I had my family and friends visit throughout the month, and we didn't have a car, and it was away from town or towns and villages and things like that. So I walked an average of 7 or 8 miles a day every day, and we all walked. We walked to dinner, back from dinner. We walked to go shopping. We walked to go to the beach. We just took hikes for the sole purpose of taking a hike. And I realized at the end of the month, I got like 240 miles of walking in.
Wow.
And I had a hamstring injury that I'd been working on the months prior. These are the sorts of injuries that when you get older, they just, they take a little bit longer to heal. When you're 18, you get a hamstring injury, it's better the next day. When you're 28, it takes a couple of days or a week. When you're 30, it takes, at my age, it can be devastating. So I had physical therapy. I had 10 sessions of physical therapy for like 2 hours each. Nothing worked. Next thing you know, I walked, and I walked in basically minimalist shoes the whole time for the month of July, and the issue resolved.
Wow.
And it's just so magical that you always go back to nature has the best way to fix things, whether it's COVID, whether it's, global warming. I mean, whatever you look at, and heart disease, dementia, all the things that we talk about and know about, nature always has the best answer. It's not found in drugs. It's not found in some surgical intervention. It's not found in, all of the magic, potions and lotions and things that we figure we need. Literally, there's always a solution that will be found in nature that's probably the best solution.
I love that. When it comes to minimalist shoes, I've been reading about them for years. Are they really good to wear on, like, when you're walking on concrete? Because I understand that being barefoot is like, you spend a lot of time on the actual beach, where walking barefoot I think is makes obviously the most sense. But like my experience with wearing really thin soled shoes, it kind of hurts like my lower back a little bit, or my knees when I'm walking on concrete.
Right. Well, I mean, there's the difference between a very thin sole and a slightly cushioned sole that still has zero drop and still doesn't have much of an arch. So you're still requiring the small muscles of your feet to do some work. Having said that, I mean, I walked mostly pavement in France.
Wow.
Because it was up and down streets and sidewalks and boardwalks and things like that. And again, the more I did it, to your point, you have to adapt to it. It's not something that you go out and buy minimalist shoes and then the first day you run 7 miles. You gotta break your feet in a little bit. You have to adapt them, acclimate them to the shoes. But once you get acclimated, then it becomes a great thing, and it becomes good for a back problem or good for a
Our mutual friend Aaron Alexander. Those are all like he wears. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that guy's a beast. So. So you don't do any deliberate workouts at this point? Like,
for sure.
You're still going to the gym.
But I go to the gym, but now what used to be an hour and 20-minute workout is a 23-minute workout. I literally go to get the pump, if you will, and to do some, maybe some resistance, rubber band resistance exercises, things like that. If I do upper body, it's pull-ups. It might be dips. I do push-ups.
Like where in the rep range generally?
Oh, usually 15 reps per set, 3-set kind of thing. Nothing that, while I've done a lot of research on lifting heavy weights, there's a point at which lifting heavy weights, again, becomes sort of dangerous at my age. So like I will do once every 10 days, I'll do a Hex Bar Deadlift, right? And I can do 335 pounds, which is double my body weight. But I don't like to because that's a 1 rep max. And 1 rep maxes are sort of like binary. Either you can do it, in which case it's probably not your max, or you can't do it, in which case you might hurt yourself. So, whatever you think your 1 rep max, or I think my 1 rep max is, I might work up to 4 reps of something that's 88% of that or something.
Yeah.
But again, always sort of contemplated to avoid injury, not to court injury.
Yeah.
And there is a point, for me, it happened around the age of 52, where you realize you're never going to set another PR in anything. So why even risk that? And then it just becomes a game to figure out how to, optimize your workout. Again, the minimum effective dose of a workout to get you through the workout uninjured, leave you feeling not knackered, not beat up, but feeling, like you did a workout and that you're going to recover in a day or two.
Yeah. Are you at all familiar with this? I discovered this guy on Instagram recently. He's like a knees over toes guy or something like that. Yeah. But it's basically like this philosophy, which he's sort of championing. But, I'm sure you're well familiar with this concept as well, that, the dogma in the fitness world when doing moves like squats and lunges to never let your knees go over your toes actually isn't rooted in science and could potentially be to the detriment of like knee stability and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not that well versed in the biomechanics there, but like somebody like Kelly Starrett, who is, he's gone through all these iterations of, where the knees should be and where the feet should be relative to the knees. And I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to your own biomechanics. Like if you can have somebody who can watch you and understands biomechanics, and then how your own body is set up, maybe you're pigeon-toed, maybe you're knock-kneed, maybe you're bow-legged, maybe you've got years of hip dysplasia. I mean, there are all these factors that you have to add into the equation in order to come up with what's right for you. And I think sometimes, one size fits all workout routine like that can be problematic.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of like fitness porn on Instagram, people doing all kinds of crazy moves, but biomechanically, like something as simple as a deadlift for me has always been a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm like a tall, lanky guy.
Yeah.
And I've just never been able to do them properly, I feel like. And
a true deadlift, or have you tried the Hex Bar Deadlift?
I've never tried that.
So the Hex Bar Deadlift is just a kinder, gentler way of doing a deadlift. Because the bar is around you, the weight is sort of through the middle of your body instead of over the front of it. So the tendency to strain your back trying to do heavy weights is decreased because of the centering of the weight over the middle of you.
Super interesting. And how does the weight like translate? Like, are you typically stronger?
Most people are a little bit stronger on a Hex Bar Deadlift. Yeah. And the Hex Bar Deadlift is kind of a combination of a loaded squat and a deadlift. If you can imagine, the weight behind your back on a squat, and keeping your back positioned appropriately, you're trying to keep the weight over the center of your body. Same thing with a Hex Bar Deadlift, but except now you're deadlifting it instead of from here, your arms are at your side, and part for me, that amount of weight puts, I think my weakest, the weakest part of my lift there is my grip strength.
Interesting.
Yeah.
With sort of, in air quotes, anti-aging being a primary focus of your efforts, are there any like particular muscle groups that you spend more time exercising, like hips, legs, lower body, things like that?
That's a good question. There are more that I should spend time exercising, but I probably don't. And yeah, hips, inner thigh, sort of paying more attention to hamstrings, to glutes, to the, for instance, I've had Achilles issues over the years. And the Achilles issue isn't in and of itself problematic. It's the tightness in the calf muscle, in the gastroc. So, being able to understand that a lot of these injuries where you feel them is not where the actual source of the problem is. And you have to kind of deconstruct and figure out how to go back and approach those. And then I've had enough injuries over the years. I've had severely torn hamstrings on one severely torn on my right leg, not so much on my left. I tore my lat muscle when I was 35 years old, and it dropped. The thing tore off and dropped down and was a ball.
Jesus.
And I didn't. In both cases, I didn't have surgery, and it just allowed I should have, but anyway, I allowed my body to kind of return to its own like natural state, which how that manifested itself was an asymmetrical body now that was doing symmetrical work. So, for instance, when I was doing pull downs or pull ups, if you look at my back, if you cut it down the middle, it looks like two different backs, two different people.
Wow.
Because the musculature is so different from one side to the next, because the side that had the injury sort of muscles found ways to do the work, new muscles that wouldn't ordinarily be used in that particular exercise. It's a little weird.
You ever hear that line, find what you love and let it kill you?
Yeah, that's
you.
That's
pretty
me.
much.
That's me. No, I've had enough. I got a patellar tendon torn off playing Frisbee one time. So I've had my share of those sorts of injuries, but knock wood, I come back and I work around them. I figure out a workaround because I still want to play and I don't want to sit on the sidelines.
It reminds me of my my middle brother Andrew. He's basically a competitive jiu-jitsu fighter, and well, his intent is not to like go to the. I'm going to sound like such an idiot here, but like the big leagues or whatever, like major competitions. But he's more than a hobbyist. Like he loves jiu-jitsu. But his intent is not to go pro. Mm-hmm. And yet he's always getting these injuries. Like his knees are always getting messed up. He's like tearing things, his meniscus, in both, I think he's teared at this point. He's developing like some kind of cyst on the back of the other knee, and his ear. Recently, he started to develop the cauliflower ear in on one side. And I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? Yeah. But it's because he loves it.
Yeah. I had not heard that line, and I'm going to use it. Find something you love and let it kill you.
You've never heard that?
No.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Because that's really what I think it is. That's what, to me, the meaning of life is, mm-hmm. Like we're all on this moving walkway, like at the airports, towards this, this inevitable destination. And I think to have a meaningful life, which I think is, if you look at all of the world's long-lived populations, having a sense of purpose in their lives.
Absolutely.
It's crucially important.
And to digress a little bit, what I see with the generations coming up, and I'm kind of fearful of what's going to come out of COVID as a result of this, but this reason to get out of bed in the morning, like why do you get up in the morning? Why do you not just do what Brian Wilson did in the 60s and stay in bed for 2 years and never get out of bed? You have to have meaning. You have to have a reason to get up. And for a lot of people, it's a hobby. For your brother, it's that pursuit, even though it's killing him. It's not killing him. It's just it's letting him know that he's alive is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I think I used to have a T-shirt. My original T-shirt with Primal Nutrition and Primal Kitchen was "Live Long, Drop Dead," and I've sort of felt that way. That was the hunter-gatherer experience. Like if you survived the rigors of the hostile environment, you got stronger and stronger and stronger until, something, either a saber-toothed tiger whacked you, or you just at 88 or 90 years old, even 100,000 years ago, you just dropped dead.
Yeah, you just want to make it through with as few scars and injuries as possible, but you're gonna accumulate some.
Right, but back to sort of what we said in the opening, which was, what defines a quality of life, and one of those things, mobility, is that ability to snowboard and powder down a steep face. That is one of the greatest experiences, in life, or surfing, or skiing, or cycling, in the Alps. There are all of these experiences that so many people will never get because they're not fit enough to suit up and go try it out. And then those that do try it they're smitten.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the aging population in this country, and everybody's, everyone that you see is frail, barely mobile. It's a real problem. And just because it's typical, just because the way that people typically age is common doesn't make it normal. And so, this is, I think, an important conversation to be having.
Yeah. I mean, that even sort of bleeds over into, medical statistics where they look at, the blood work of the average population or the normal population. Well, that's the average population. That's an average unhealthy population. So when you look at ranges of outcomes or ranges of blood work, they're not referencing ideal. They're referencing what the general population norm is, and it's generally an unhealthy population. It's just bizarre. So we look at cholesterol numbers, right? And people have cholesterol all over the map, and some people have HDL that's in the 30s or 40s, which is horrible. But because it fits a norm that there are a lot of people that have that low HDL, and as long as the total is under 200, then the doctor will say everything's fine. You're within a range.
Yeah, that's how they design those reference ranges, right? It's just based on population averages.
Yeah.
And we know that the average the average person in this country is not well, unfortunately. 12% of people have good metabolic health, which is just
no, it's ridiculous. One of the things that's come out of the COVID experience was vitamin D levels, and we see how important vitamin D is. Like literally vitamin D might be the single most important factor in being able to handle a bout of COVID-19, or maybe not even, becoming asymptomatic. And when you look at the reference ranges of even the studies, the reference ranges of the populations start with such low levels of vitamin D. Like you and I, having been in this field for a long time, would go, Jesus, those people with 25 or less, they're unhealthy out of the gates, and yet that was sort of the high end of one range. And then they said, well, if it was above 25, then you were into a healthier range. Well, no, I don't think you're healthy until you get into the 40 and above.
Between 40 and 60, nanograms per milliliter is typically what I aim for.
Yeah.
When I had COVID, that was definitely one of the supplements that I brought into the arsenal.
Yep.
It was vitamin C, it was quercetin, it was zinc, melatonin, vitamin C, and fish oil. I don't think enough people are talking about fish oil as a potential therapeutic option. I'm not aware really of any research on it, but to me it makes a lot of sense that fish oil would be useful, in mitigating the cytokine storm and preventing blood clots and things like that, because fish oil is a natural blood thinner.
Right, thinner.
Hey, if you like that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.
To think about storing body fat as a survival mechanism during times of water scarcity, a powerful survival mechanism. The camel's hump isn't filled with water. There's no, 10-gallon water tank in the camel's hump. It's fat.